My approach to photographing forests changes depending on the lens that I'm using. So today it's going to be a challenge using the 70 to 200 millimeter on a full frame body. It's going to be a foggy forest, as you can see, and I'm going to share with you some tips, suggestions, settings when I'm photographing with this type of lens in a situation like this. Right now I'm at the entrance of the forest, and I always like to take things slowly when I'm photographing forests, especially forests, because you can have lots of opportunity for compositions and interesting things to photograph really close to you. Now for this first photo, the settings were f11 ISO 100, of course, and 1/8 of a second, and I did first I did the photo from only one frame, only one shot, and then I did it in a panoramic format. I think that when you're using a long lens in the forest, the space compresses and it allows you to have a different feeling, but it also makes everything looks tidier because you're framing smaller areas. And I think you can expand that by creating panoramas and having a completely different feel to how you experience the forest in a visual way. When you're photographing panoramas, I think the ideal number of photos is between 5 and 6. If you go above that, the panorama still looks okay, but it gets really wide. There are situations when you need that because you're making an image for a banner or something, but for your personal use and for print and with print reasons, I think 5 to maximum 6 shots is more than enough, and you keep your camera on portrait mode. You also have to make sure you have enough space overlapping, and my suggestion is also to use longer focal length because you get rid of all the perspective problems. Another thing you need to do when you're using a longer lens, especially inside the forest, is to be very conscious of what is happening around you from afar, from a distance, because you need to be further away from your subject or point of interest to photograph it, so you need to spot it ahead. If I'm concentrating on that tree over there for 2 reasons. The first and most important one is that it still has leaves on it, and in a situation like this, having leaves on the branches of a tree is a big plus. The second reason is the light behind that tree, and this means that I can create some contrast, I can create some mystery zone. But now I move to the other side, or to one side of the tree, I'm having the light from its left, and I'm going to do a panorama. I'm hoping that this photo will depict this tree in a better light, if you want. The only thing I don't like is that piece of trunk over there, and I'll probably clone it out in Photoshop. This is another aspect that I think you should be open as a photographer. If you have things that if you remove things from a place, don't say this is a photo of that place, because it's not. It's an artistic interpretation, and that is what this photo is. I'm inside the forest right now, and I have 3 options from how the forest looks. One is to find trees with interesting trunks. 2 is to make a panorama with the silhouettes of the trees, which I already did. I framed a little bit of vegetation at the base of the photo, and then the faint looking silhouettes of the tree trunks that are lost in the fog. And I have a third option to look for close-ups, for things that may look interesting enough.
Subsided all to your love, I'm trying. Your skin's too far good to lose. Subsided all. Must run past the point of life. Take a breath as I memorize. You hide it. You hide it, love.
How about photographing the chaos of the forest? And as you can see over here, there's nothing interesting at all. But I'm willing to bet that if you frame this in a panoramic format, it will have a certain feel. I don't know if I can say a certain aesthetic, but it can surely have a certain feel. Now, I don't know how this experiment will look like, but that's the challenge. Force yourselves to think differently, and the experiment, you never know when you find something interesting without even realizing. The settings I decided to be ISO 100, 1/30th of a second, and the aperture was 5.6 and the focal length 135 millimeters. The reason for f5.6 is to have a little bit of separation. There's a lot of chaos over there, lots of vegetation grown up in strange ways. So I wanted just a little bit of separation between that vegetation, what is happening behind. I also photographed from above, standing, but it didn't look that well. And I decided to stay really low to have the fog in the background and to have a little bit of separation. Now I know I talk a lot about a shot that I don't know, and I'm going to commit to this, and I'm going to show this photo to you, even though it may not look okay. It may not, because it's at the first glance it's nothing there, but just to prove a point that you can have fun with your photography. You don't have to be completely focused only on certain type of shots that you know for sure that they're going to look okay. Doing photography just for the sake of photography, it may bring you a lot more happiness than you may think. So if you want to know more about landscape photography, I have an ebook. The link is in the description of the video. I also have an editing course over there. And until next time, keep on photographing, because it's the only way to get better. Bye bye.